no, I think they recognize all those things, and they've recognized they've had the failure. I'm with you guys. I like the optimism because I think it's honest optimism.
Yep. Yes.
I think a year ago it was almost, yes, they had those things go against
They were trying
them.
to tell themselves it.
Yes, they almost
Yeah,
felt
we're like, we're in there.
Yeah.
We're in the mix.
Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates, I am Jenna Cottrell. We're going to break down Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott's end of the season press conferences. But before we do, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.
30K.
I was getting there.
You were getting
the
there.
road to
30K.
30K. All right, Mike. Beane talking for over an hour. Sean McDermott also today talking about it. Where do you think this team is at right now?
They're close. We know they're close. They've been close. They're disappointed, right, is what Sean said
But
today.
not broken.
But not broken. I think that's fair. I said it's
I do
both
too.
honest and optimistic in the way they look at it. They are close. They're right there with these teams. But it can feel so close and yet so far away because Kansas City does it every year.
Yep.
And Cincinnati did it in the year when they didn't. And the Bills haven't gotten past that point. So I can see where the frustration is with fans, but I can also see from this organization's place, like, we are a few plays away. It's not like they're, I know we don't like them saying getting blown out, but they were a 3-point game. The last time they lost to them was in the 13-second game. They're so close. But those things are hard to come by because they've got the pieces. Those pieces just haven't come through at the right time.
And those opportunities are hard to get back to
Yep.
because you look at a team like the Cincinnati Bengals that probably sits there and goes, hey, every year we're probably going to be competing with the Chiefs for an AFC championship. And they missed the playoffs this year. I liked the optimism from both of the guys. It felt different than last year. And like we said, we talked about how last year they were emotionally drained. They seem fired up after this season.
Yeah.
They seem to say, hey, look, we found something at the end of the season when we were 6-6, and that's encouraging and stuff that we can build off of. And for me, that is where it feels a little different. You know, I joked around about it being Groundhog's Day yesterday. It does feel a little bit different because, hey, they don't have a ton of room in the salary cap. We'll hear that, plenty of all that stuff, and I'll give my takes on that in a little bit. But they do feel like the nucleus, the core, and again, it is a few plays, one way or another.
I loved the positivity we saw today
I thought so, too.
because it did feel so different than last year. Last year we heard just the emotions of this team, how drained they were, and then at the same
They were in denial last year.
I don't think they were in
They
denial.
were in
I think they were
last year.
I think they were battered and bruised.
They were, but the idea of like, we didn't get blown out, we were close, and it was almost like, no, I think they recognize all those things, and they've recognized they've had the failure. I'm with you guys. I like the optimism because I think it's honest optimism.
Yes.
I think a year ago it was almost, yes, they had those things go
They were
against
trying
them.
to tell themselves it.
Yes, they almost
Yeah,
felt
we're like, we're in there.
Yeah.
We're in the
And-
mix. Yeah.
And there was the idea of they were beaten up a year ago, but
They
it almost
were.
felt like they got cheated out of it. And look, that was different. I think this team was that close this year. They really were.
They really were.
They were in a game they probably should have won, and they didn't win, or certainly could have won.
Brandon said that when he was talking to Josh after the game, it was almost like Josh was in denial that, like, they lost.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not
That
playing
was like,
again.
that game, like, we're going to keep playing. Like, yeah, we're going on.
But I think that's fair because I think
Yeah.
the way things ended, I mean, it was a 3-point loss, but the team, I mean, even Brandon Beane
And
said,
I'm sure
2-minute
none of
warning.
you want to hear this.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I know this is,
No,
and
no,
maybe
no.
Yeah.
not right now, but you want to hear this eventually.
Here's the thing about it is, if they didn't have the history they've had,
Yeah.
you would be extremely optimistic after a game like this and a season like this. But the reality is, Jenna, they do have this history of being close, the 13 seconds, all those things. So it has piled up and piled up. And I think from sitting at home, and even for us, sometimes it feels like they're some version of running it back.
Always the bridesmaids.
Yes.
Never
Not
the
even
bride.
sometimes not even the bridesmaid. Like, you know, you're invited to the wedding, but you're not in the party.
I will say the overwhelming theme we heard today was, you know, Matt Beauvais of 7 News asked a good question. It's changed, sometimes a good thing, all these things. But also McDermott saying it's tweaks. It's
Yeah.
not ripping things down to the stud. It's tweaks. Do you believe in that?
Yeah, I do. And it was funny. I remember at the Combine last year, I was actually just asked Sean McDermott a question after he did his media scrum, and I said, everybody loves continuity, right? It's, look at all these things we're bringing back. And then I said, and then when continuity isn't great, everybody's like, you got to change it. You got to blow everything up. It is that fine little tweaks. I think the defense actually took a step forward this season.
They did.
With all their injuries, with Sean McDermott being so much more hands-on. I think that's all positives. We heard Josh Allen talk about Joe Brady, who we all, I think, are assuming will be the official offensive coordinator.
It almost felt like a Freudian slip from Bean talking about the weapons that
Yeah.
Joe
Joe
will
will
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of those things coupled into, maybe Joe having more of an impact and getting more time and not just having to kind of roll with what the offense was already installed. All of those things to me, small tweaks, I'm with it. He talks about not ripping it down to the studs, not blowing this thing up. That, I know that's not what fans want to hear because fans right now are saying, we got to do everything different. I think you're close, and I think it is small tweaks, and that change can be a good thing as we saw with the defense this year.
It's rare when a team is in the spot the Bills are in.
It's both fascinating, the continued success, the sustained success,
Yes.
but also the plateau that has been apparent as well.
100%, because normally there would have been major change. But you do have Josh Allen. You do have talent. To Dan's point, we saw a real rise, I thought, on the talent on defense and even on offense when you talk about Kincaid and Shakir and those type of players. So there's a reason for that. But it is going to be a different offseason. And the idea that some of these veterans are gone is not necessarily a bad thing for the long term. And it's funny that the Chiefs are there all the time. The Chiefs have gone through this. They went very young on their secondary and won the Super Bowl.
Trent McDuffie.
They have changed their wide receiver group, and they might still make it back to a Super Bowl. And they've put themselves in a different position and continue to win when most people would say, at some point, it's got to take a step back, and it hasn't.
That's what happens with Patrick Mahomes. But the Bills, they have Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And I asked Sean because I was curious.
Great question.
You talk about the national perspective, and Josh is a lightning rod. Ton of praise, a ton of criticism. I can't imagine being him and having to listen to people talk about it. But I asked Sean, what do you say to Josh? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. But I know Josh can wear that well, and I know I can too.
It was funny because he did say, me too.
I mean, it's fair.
Sean kind of said, I get it too. I mean, nobody's wrote a three-part article about Josh, though.
No. Let's listen to him.
Yeah, much like my job, right? This is heavy as the head that wears the crown, right? In terms of you're a leader, right? And so as much praise as we both get, is as much criticism as we get. And you have to be okay with that, and he is. And you saw him the other night. He was special in a lot of instances. Are there some plays he wants back? Of course. Are there some plays I want back? Absolutely. But again, it doesn't stop here. And that winner's mindset that he has, that I have, that we want our team to have, is what helps us get to that next level.
I honestly think that is one of the most honest and insightful answers we've gotten from Sean McDermott.
I thought it was great, and great question, Jenna.
I just liked McDermott's poise at the podium today. He felt like a very set, confident coach of we're on to something.
I agree.
Like it just felt like instead of, it wasn't defensive. He was very poised in his answers and had this stoic hey, we need to have a winning mindset. He's like, I go to sleep every night thinking about how I need to take the next step. And he goes, 2 steps, because I need to get past the divisional round and that. And he goes, it's a winning mindset to get to those small plays. And they go, it starts here. It starts in our building. It starts in believing it. I loved all of that mindset.
I thought his demeanor, so much of the end of the season press conferences, you kind of have a vibe of, okay, how is this coach feeling on these things? For so many years, it has been, man, Brandon Beane, the confidence that I have in him, all these things. But I thought, I agree today, the Sean that we saw was accepting of the faults that the team has and the need to move forward, but also, like you said, they are on to something. And I was thinking about it. This Sean McDermott coaching job that he did this year in general, I think he is on to something. We saw him make more aggressive decisions. They weren't always the right decision, but we saw the maturation process of him as well.
He ain't going anywhere, fans. And
No,
I'm
he's
sorry.
not.
And I'm sorry.
He's
And,
not.
and for the people that are in my mentions and are replying to all my tweets about what McDermott says, excuse me. he has so much support in that locker room.
In the building,
and,
too.
And like I said, I want to post more clips about what the players had to say about how honored they are to get to play for a coach like him and a man like him. You make a move at coaching when you lose the locker room, and that is the farthest thing. I know you're upset, and I get it. All of those feelings are valid, but he is still the main man in charge here, and he has the support throughout this entire building.
And the Pagulas. He has immense support from the Pagulas. And I hear when people say, you know, a coach and a quarterback who have been together for 7 years, they've never won a Super Bowl after that. I think there's a stat about that. And I get when people say that because you're like, okay, it's never been done. But McDermott, there is full confidence in the building around him.
Yeah, look, you can't get there unless you get close, right? And they've been there at that level. And I think it's very easy to say, well, Sean isn't the guy. It's rare in this league when there has been that guy to take the team over the top. It happened with John Gruden with Tampa Bay when he did it, when he came over from the Raiders, right? Where it was like they got close and then they ended up winning. Most of the time, it kind of goes the other way. You know, way back in the day, the Houston Oilers were that way. The Chargers were that way with Marty Schottenheimer. Everybody's like, he's not going to get him there. And those franchises went the wrong way. This franchise does have Josh Allen, which makes it different. And listen, we can say all we want about the security and all those things. But that's coming off a year where you won the division again, and you were so close to beating the Chiefs. It's not saying it couldn't go the other way.
Nope.
And it happens
for long
fast
league.
in this
But I'm
league.
saying the offseason, earlier on the season, I think the offseason, we would have been having conversations.
No question.
We had podcasts saying he's not going to get fired now, but it is going to
could
be
happen.
it is
It
going to
could
be a
happen.
discussion. And
Yes.
from that moment that we had those discussions to where we are now, Sean has passed with flying colors. I always think about it. I thought it was Sal Capaccio, WGR, asked a really good question, saying like, people think that you're this defensive-minded coach.
Oh, that was good.
And
Yeah.
he goes, people think, fans think like you want to be conservative, like that's your mindset. And he's like, couldn't be farther from the truth. He goes, I grew up around Andy Reid.
I cut my teeth.
He goes, that is a pass-first offense.
pass
Pass
to win.
first, you run to
Run-
close it out, your pass rush ends the game. That's the way Andy always coached. And by the way, did you see how Andy coached the other night? They ran the ball, played great defense, and the quarterback was outstanding.
Two-dimensional.
Yeah,
It's hard to
two-dimensional.
stop.
It is. Oh, my God.
Turn the mug.
Look at him.
Okay. Let's take our victory lap.
Well, we could take the victory
Right.
lap for that.
We'll take
and
the
then
victory lap. I'll take my victory lap on Trell Bernard because hearing what Brandon
Yeah.
Beane
This
had
is
to
like
say.
the 12th time you've taken a victory lap.
All right,
for
I'll go
Terrell
back
Bernard.
to an ACL tears and an oil change.
Yeah.
We can play the hits
actually,
right
let's-
now,
let's-
baby.
Actually, let's talk about some players
Let's
first real
talk about
quick.
players.
Yes.
Yeah, Trell Bernard.
He wanted to play.
Love the story that
Yes.
he told about
and
Bernard.
we'll put that in here. This is what Brandon Beane had to say about Trell Bernard this past week.
He wanted to play. So, like, the doctors told us after the Pittsburgh game, like, you can count him out for the Chiefs game. And this kid kept saying every day, I'm playing. You saw him running in the pools. And we go work him out the day before the game. And some of the things looked good. Some of it, he still struggled. And he got done and knew he couldn't do it. And just the tears in his eyes, I almost had tears in my eyes. And that's what gets you excited. And you got guys like him on your team, you're going to go a long way. And I had high respect for him, but this is a business, and sometimes guys make business decisions, and you understand and respect it. This guy was going to go out there and play on one leg and one foot if he had to, and we had to protect him from himself.
Yeah, and there's more to it. Before it, he just talks about how him coming into this role and being able to be the guy and the quarterback of the defense and look at Von Miller in a huddle and to say, like, this is what we're doing, and to be able to dictate that. He goes, this defense now will go through him, and that the entire defense next year will be better because of the player and man and leader that Trell Bernard is. It's huge.
Yeah, and it's big to know that a
got a
guy
guy.
like Bernard, who they had to have some concerns about coming into this year, not only played well, but I think he's one of your best players on defense coming into next year.
And you're going to put him next to your second
Matt
best
Milano.
player on defense,
And look,
or
a
your
gu-
best player.
And a
Yeah.
guy like Dorian Williams, who showed flashes, but again, got more playing time on defense than Bernard did the year before, could eventually be a really good third linebacker for them.
Interesting when they talked about Dorian Williams and just about the fact of like, he just didn't seem like he had a full grasp of the playbook. And he talked about how being made a comparison of that Trell Bernard played last year in a Jets game when Milano was out. And he goes, and Trell Bernard looked like a rookie. And he asked him this OTAs or training camp. He goes, well, how do you feel? And he goes, I feel totally different. Understanding it. He goes, your Tulane playbook, defensive playbook, is like this. He goes, ours is like this. So don't give up hope, because you saw flashes with Dorian Williams as just a freak talent. When he starts to understand maybe more knowledge of the playbook, watch out.
Yeah. Let's talk about 22 free agents. Brandon Beane has a lot of decisions to make. We can talk about how the NFL salary cap isn't real and all these things, but I thought he had some moments where you feel like you have a little bit of insight. Talking about Trey White.
Well, let's start with Trey White.
Yeah.
It's always about, Trey, he's got to be healthy.
Yep.
They mention that all the time. I come across listening to it thinking Trey White's not back on this team next year.
I disagree.
Oh, really?
I disagree.
Okay.
Okay?
Why? May I ask why?
I don't think that they're even, I can't say they're not thinking about it because they're always thinking a step ahead. I think they want to see him healthy. And I think that right now they don't have any full answer to replace a Trey White. And I think there are bigger issues to fill. And I think they said a healthy Trey White is a hell of a football player.
He is, there's no question. But I think there is a question about what full healthy means for him.
Yep.
And you have Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas under contract. You still have Kyer Elam if he's around. I don't know. You still have Dane Jackson around. Like, they have those players. I don't know, Jenna, where were you when you heard that?
When I heard it, I thought, I don't love that, because in terms of him coming back, because it talked about the player that he is, all these things, but we got to be healthy and we got to get there, and it's still a long road to do that. So that's why in my head I was like, yeah, it's not exactly a ringing endorsement, because I compare it to kind of what he said about Gabe Davis, and I think that Gabe Davis is someone that the Bills will. I mean, what did he say? I'm a fool not to try to bring back Gabe Davis.
Yes, but so one guy is a free agent, so you can let him go out there, and I think Gabe's going to find somebody that's going to want to sign him.
Yep.
I think he's had success in this league. He's still at the age where teams want to do that. Trey is coming off 2 substantial injuries. Now, could he convince them otherwise at some point in the offseason that physically he's back to being Trey White? Because based on his contract and where this team is right now, if he's not Trey White, and you know what I mean, I don't think he's going to be on the team.
I did think we saw him in the locker room yesterday, and we haven't seen him in a while. And it was good to see him back in the building. I'll say that. I feel like what he means to this team, and I mean, even Sean McDermott was asked about what Micah Hyde means to the team, and he brought up guys like Trey White setting the foundation.
And like I said, maybe we talk about this later on a podcast, but Trey White doesn't get treated like everybody else. He's different.
Well, Sean, was it a little bit of slip? He said it was my first draft pick?
Yep.
Because it was his draft pick.
Yeah.
It was.
That was his draft.
Yep.
It wasn't the privy man.
So
The privy man.
you are backed
Yeah, way
so
to go.
far
Okay,
out
sorry.
of the shot. Like, you turned into, you're going to
all
be
right.
like in a shadow.
It's okay.
I
I'm
just
in
think
your
Trey-
guys' shadow.
I think Trey White just gets treated differently. And I know that you can look at it and say these moves and that moves. It's just Trey White is a different player.
Listen, I hope he's back, and if he's back as Trey White,
Watch
line him
out.
up there, then
Yeah.
let's go. I just got a feeling that health thing is a major, major concern along with the contract.
Do we want to talk about Gabe then?
Well, yeah, let's talk Von Miller before that, because I think the Von Miller thing is, he's got time on the contract yet. They'll wait everything else out, but
McDermott did say that game against the Chiefs was the best that he played all season, which is a fact, and that he hopes that's the Vaughn they see in 2024.
I think his contract may be so difficult to move on from now. If there's no suspension or loses any of that money, it's a different story. But that ends up being he better be that good or better coming back next year, because that is a lot of money you are putting on a player who made a couple of nice plays in the run game as his best game of the season. Yeah. Now, it still is some time, and obviously it's a serious injury at his age. but they may be.
So old.
He's like your age, isn't he?
He's older than me.
Wow. Not that
Thank
much.
God.
All right, now we can get to Gabe. So go ahead.
You were right. You were right.
You're right.
You were right.
All right, let's
say
move
it.
to the next guy.
So do you want me to say it?
We done here?
Gabe has, because of his injuries and his inconsistencies, he's held this team back a little bit
I think it
because
is-
of their planning.
It is a misstep by the organization. And look, Brandon's, sometimes people think, what are your mistakes? I mean, yeah, he knows the ones that didn't work out as well as you wanted to. I think when you see a guy like Gabe work the way they talk about it, there's reason to be very optimistic. When you see the
Encouraged.
game he had against the Chiefs or the Steelers last year, you go, this guy's got this in him. But you needed it last year. You need it this year on a more consistent basis, and it wasn't
Injuries
there.
have been a part of it. There's no question about it. But there has been this belief that he's ready to become a true number 2 wide receiver. And you look at the game, and this team is lacking another option alongside Stephon Diggs.
And you're gonna need to get younger there,
Gabe
too.
has not been as complimentary to Stephon Diggs as Stephon Diggs has needed. Period.
Consistent.
The only
it's the
way
consistency.
I
That's what
say
it
he's
is.
back is if he goes out on the market and for some reason there's not a market for him or
There's
nothing close, and it's a 1-year deal to come back. I just see it because you're
It's
going to
Josh
need to
Allen.
get younger and speed at wide receiver. That is
Speed.
not what he brings. Shakir brings a lot of things that Gabe has brought to this team, but not the deep ball. I think they're going to need to find that from a younger player. You do need a younger player, again, at wide
Yep.
receiver. To go with Shakir, to go with Kincaid, and still for Diggs, because Diggs ain't going anywhere.
Diggs isn't going
No.
anywhere. He's a true number 1 wide receiver. That's what Brandon Beane said. They're still trying to figure out why his numbers dropped off. I think we've asked him that 1,000 times. We've asked Sean it, and the fact of
I loved his response though. Like, why did Diggs' response or numbers go down? He's like, look, if we figured that out, we would have fixed it.
And sometimes it sure as hell helps to have the guy on the other side because Jamar Chase is great, but T. Higgins has helped make him as good as he is.
Tyler Boyd, like you have guys, numerous guys.
Right.
Yeah.
A.J. Brown's got Devontae Smith on the other side. Like, it is really helpful to have another guy that the other team is that worried about. And Diggs is a little older now, but
And they need to draft one before the 4th round.
yes, I think it's going to be early.
I agree.
It's going to be early on the pick.
Can we wrap up now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lunch.
Hungry. I'm just say.
Wow.
Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, comment,
Love the
and
vibes.
subscribe.
I felt good.
I agree. I felt a lot. Last year I was like, ooh, I don't know. This is going to take months to get the exhaustion out of this team.
Yeah.
Very different vibe. Agreed. All
Yep,
right. For
it
Mike
is.
and Dan, I'm Jenna. I'm also hungry. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time on Buffalo Plus.
Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.